Political development, liberalization by stealth. So, by now, your economy would have entered into the whirlpool of waves of regulations and low economic growth. Now, what next? Suppose a new minister has been appointed now. What do you think would be his strategy? Will you advise him to continue with socialism, concept of central planning, as a way to manage resources, restrictive trade practices, and unfavorable foreign investment policies, or would you advise him to move towards free market capitalism to manage resources, flexible trade practices, and favorable foreign investment?
Well, I will go for establishing the hybrid system which I always wanted to establish, which would be a mix of both capitalism and socialism.
Why?
See, while the argument of free market capitalism looks to be great on paper, but I'm still not sure about how it will help the underprivileged section of society to grow. So, by now, free market forces to manage resources under the economy is the need of the hour. Conscious focus on poor development and in reducing the inequalities in the economy can't be kept aside. So, I will go for gradual movement of market forces from centrally planned to free, while keeping good focus on socialism too.
Very good answer. My dear, summarizes most of our coming discussion. Let us see what changes were brought in Indian economy during this era. As we have already seen, the stifling impact of regulations began to be recognized in 1970s. This recognition led to some relaxation of the licensing policy. In this section, we will focus on some key developments and we will discuss the specific measures undertaken as part of this deregulation in next part of our discussion. Political development. Liberalization by stealth. As we have seen till the end of 1980, all major banks, insurance companies, oil companies and coal mines had been nationalized. With some exceptions, foreign companies were in the process of being brought under the purview of FERA 1973, which required most of them to lower foreign equity to 40% and to register in India as Indian companies. Activities of big business houses and large enterprises were subject to tight controls and confined to narrow range of industries. A number of products came to be reserved for manufacture exclusively by small-scale enterprise. Licensing regime supreme primarily in virtually all industries. Entry and expansion of firms came to be governed by a series of lists subject to complex web of rules. In international trade, all imports were subject to licensing and strict foreign exchange control. Consumer goods import was banned. This has resulted in dismal industrial performance during the first half of the 1970s. The sector grew only by 2% per annum during 1970-75. This performance led some in official circles to begin advocating the relaxation of controls. As a result, second half of the 1970s saw some piecemeal deregulation of industry. Likewise, steps were taken to streamline the import licensing procedures. The process gained momentum in the 1980s, especially after Rajiv Gandhi became the Prime Minister. Politicians, however, remained fearful that the public might equate the relaxation of controls to the renunciation of socialistic goals. As a result, liberalization during this period was done quietly, as if by secrecy. Because of this secret liberalization, Indian economy started recovering from its dismal performance in Era 3. To be precise, the years of 1977 to 1988 saw the average GDP growth rate of India raised from 2.6% to healthy 4.8%. Table shows the sectoral growth rates during Era 3, though growth rates across all sectors rose sharply during this phase in comparison to Era 2. By far, the sharpest increase was in industry. Industrial growth increased from 3.2% in Phase 2 to decent levels of 6.3% in Phase 3. The rationalization of licensing and deregulation of industries played a key role in this growth. However, the reforms were piecemeal, but to surprise of all the socialists, they have shown real capability of turnaround of fate of Indian economy. This insight was the key for the structural reform in 1990s. The rise in growth in services was the result of continuous practice of expansionary fiscal policies driven through socialism thoughts and could not be sustained. In fact, it was the main reason of 1991 balance of payment crisis. Political development, liberalization by stealth. During the emergency of 1975, an attempt was made to bring the derailed economy back on track. As a part of this effort, the government tried to relax some constraints on the margin to allow better use of the production capacity. Election held in March brought a non-Congress party coalition government at the national level for the first time. But continued squabbles among the coalition partners precluded major policy changes, and the policy was run largely by bureaucrats. In the end, the coalition fell apart before completing its first-year term and fresh elections were called. The elections returned Mrs. Gandhi to power with a two-thirds majority in the parliament. This time around, she was more pragmatic and less dogmatic Prime Minister. She had no socialistic agenda to push. The available evidence suggests that, within broadly defined parameters, Mrs. Gandhi listened to her advisers and gave them space within limits. Soon after Mrs. Gandhi returned to power, senior officials formulated a strategy of homegrown conditionality, whereby the various aspects of economic reforms would be initiated by domestic policymaker. Towards the end of tenure, Mrs. Gandhi was preoccupied with Sikh separatist movement in Punjab. In June 1984, she ordered the Indian Army to enter the Golden Temple, one of the holiest shrines of Sikhs, where a group of militant Sikhs was fortified. Thousands of Sikh pilgrims died in the operations, angering the Sikh community at large. In retaliation, two of her Indira Gandhi own guards assassinated her on October 31, 1984. Rajiv Gandhi, Mrs. Gandhi's older son, succeeded her. He was India's first modern Prime Minister, who had mostly grown up in an independent India. He was freer of socialist baggage and less fearful of being subject to dependence on the world markets than his predecessors. He came to power with aspirations of launching India into 21st century. Unsurprisingly, he implemented a program of economic liberalization, introduced many important reforms in first 2 years of his rule. He has also improved Indian relationship with USA. Unfortunately, he was also hurt politically by the military intervention at the urging of Sri Lanka's government against the Tamil insurgency in Sri Lanka.